How are you, buddy?
Good, mate. Good. How you doing? I think kind of similar to how everyone did it. You're just born for SaaS sales. You wake up one day and you think, I want to make the world a better place by selling tech. No, mate, I fell into it. I thought for years that Stevie Nicks was a dude. Turns out she's a woman, and I know loads of her songs. Didn't know that.
But I tell you what, my favourite buddy lunch is.
But they're sat on different tables when they're having so they're exchanging pleasantries on two different sides of the restaurant.
Yeah, so he's talking to a different table, and he's like, "Oh, so what did you do before?" And she looked up at him and looked at him and said, "I don't think that's any of your business, is it?"
And I am brassic now, FYI. So I'm like, I really need to start working soon. Talking like beans on toast and cans of tuna for dinner style, like brassic.
How do you remain a consistent top performer? Are there any habits or tips and tricks that you can share with our viewers? 26 is round the corner, mate. You're doing some great stuff from a professional standpoint. What does 2026 look like for Christian Lane?
We're in the sweet spot of I think the AI rollout or the new tech renaissance that we're in at the moment, because there's still an element. They haven't made it good enough yet that you trust it to do a communications job. I've known you for 7 years, and I don't think you've ever said so many nice things to me in such a short period of time. It's been lovely. It's been great to hear.
I saved it all towards the end of the podcast where everyone's already switched off, so no one's going to see it, mate. All right, folks, today's episode is a special one. We've got our first ever guest on the Sell the Future podcast. Not only is he a top SaaS sales pro, he's also a mate I've had the privilege to work with and, more dangerously, go for a few beers with. He's got tons of stories, experience and insights, and we're going to finish on something light-hearted as well, so make sure you stick around for that. Welcome to the one, the only, Christian Lane. How are you, buddy?
Good, mate. Good. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Joining us from down under, pal. Thank you for making the time. I do really appreciate it.
No, it's good, mate. Pleasure to be here. It's an honour and privilege to be the first person you've put on the podcast, the first interviewee. It's all going to go downhill from here. You know that, don't you?
Mate, I'm fully expecting it to. It feels odd saying guest, mate. You're like, we work together. Do you know what I mean? You're not really a guest. It's about, I guess you are on here, mate. How long did we work together? Were we working together for like what? A year, or was it less?
No, it was literally about a year. It was about bang on a year, because I left. And it's madness. I was only at the Broadbean office in the UK for 1 year before I moved to Australia, and it feels like I'd been there for like 5 or 6 years. The amount of stories we walked away with in that small period of time.
I know, mate. It was mad. We're going to cover some of those on this podcast, mate. I hope you don't mind, but it should make for entertaining viewing, at least for us, anyway. But and also, mate, thank you for flying all the way from Australia just to wish me a happy birthday a couple of months ago. I know you flew all that way just for me, didn't you?
Specifically just for you. I didn't have weddings in Europe at the same time at all, and I wasn't related to the people that were getting married either, so I actually came over specifically for your birthday. To be fair though, I didn't know about your birthday miles ahead, and it was really inconvenient because whilst I was trying to not tell everybody I was coming home so that you didn't catch wind that I was actually coming back, I was also trying to organise meeting people from the office as well, so I could have some work related conversations, and it was really difficult doing it without the news getting back to you. So I actually ended up not seeing a lot of the people that I needed to see back in the UK.
It was so mad because when you rocked up, I was actually blowing up balloons, and I looked out the window as I was blowing up balloons, and you were walking with Sala, and I had to double take. I was like, I've seen Sala, and I was like, hold on, is that Christian? But obviously my missus knew, so she didn't say anything. And I was like, no way. And everyone's just not looking at me. And I was like, no, that can't be. I was like, I swear I've just seen Christian walk past the window. Like, what's going on? Mate, it was such a cracking surprise. And I know you moved some stuff around, jokes aside. So it was so good to see you, mate. I was pretty much worse for wear. But speaking of Australia, buddy, you moved halfway across the world. Tell me, best decision ever or biggest regret?
I mean, I've been over here about 6 years now, so if it was a regret, I've really stuck it through. No, definitely best decision ever, 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a
good
different
man.
life here, mate. It's just it's London is London, right? London is easily top 3 best cities in the world without fail. And you kind of every time you're going back, I think living in London, you don't appreciate it as much, but going back to visit it. But it is also British weather is very nice to leave. Like when you fly, when I was flying to the UK and when I'm coming back, right? So when you live in the UK and you go on holiday, you go to Spain or whatever you're doing, and you fly back and you get off the plane and you're in, Gatwick or Heathrow or worse, like Luton or something. And it's the weather. You get the British weather. Here, you get off the plane in Sydney and you're still like 20 minutes from the beach, the sun's shining. So you're kind of just stepping off one holiday into another one. So it's pretty decent.
Love it, mate. Yeah, you're absolutely spot on, and the weather, albeit, mate, we've got a bit of sun today, so I'm hoping it'll be nice. But you're right, mate. It's always nice to get out of the winter weather. We're in November now; it's freezing cold here. I think you're in the right spot, pal. So fair play to you. Right now, mate, for our viewers that don't know, how did you end up in SaaS sales?
I mean, I think kind of similar to how everyone did it, you're just born for SaaS sales. You wake up one day and you think, I want to make the world a better place by selling tech. No, mate, I fell into it. So I like a lot of salespeople, didn't have much direction up for probably the larger percentage of my life growing up. Really, ended up in recruitment, and it wasn't for me recruitment. It's amazing training, and I do love the industry, and I still operate in the industry 100%. But it just wasn't the idea of or I kind of looked at it as if I didn't like having a financial target against someone's career, right? And I never got comfortable with the fact that, and I get it. Like, don't get me wrong. For every time you're thinking to yourself, I've got to hit target. This person needs to take this job. There's someone else that you've probably gotten the best job of their life, right? So it's super rewarding. But I didn't like that kind of side of it. So I was like, how am I going to break out? What can I do? And, I know GCSEs or 4.5 GCSEs and an MVQ level 2 in catering and hospitality, FYI. So nothing really tenable to, go uni or do anything. So I was like, what can I do? What are my options? I've got minimal options, right? But I know recruitment. So I actually had a friend of mine at the moment that was working at Broadbean, and she was saying, well, look, why don't you talk to these guys? And it was just quite an easy transition because, and don't get me wrong, I mean, I had scoured the market. I probably spent about a year job hunting, going to various different interviews, interviewing at job boards, interviewing, because I nailed down the niche to, I know recruitment. I've operated in recruitment for about 6 or 7 years. How can I take what I know and go and sell technology? The money in technology is really good. Genuinely, when you get to a certain period, you can start building out a bit of a work-life balance. So it's a good industry to get into, but it's quite daunting if you've never done it before, and especially if you're not technically minded, right? That's the biggest part. Is none of us really are that technical, even though we sell it. But what we do is we understand, and especially coming from a recruitment background, I found a product to which I can relate to the problem it solved. So I can relate to the people that I'm talking to. And, when you're having those conversations and you're asking, what are your pain points? What are you trying to achieve? I can think back to when I was a recruiter and I'm like, do you know what? Yeah, 100%. Like that makes sense. This can solve this extra. So it was almost a segue taking what I know into the industry.
Yeah, spot on, mate. I mean, it was our whole team was built up of ex-recruiters, wasn't it? And I was
Yeah.
going to say to you, I mean, yeah, there's supreme challenges in recruitment and a lot of stuff that you're just not in control of, that you can have a bit more autonomy on. But were there any kind of big challenges that you faced when you moved into the industry from recruitment?
Um. Oh God, yeah. God, yes. So I think one of the biggest things I still remember, just I got told a lot when I came out of recruitment into SaaS that I wasn't very polished, and I didn't quite clock what that meant. And then I look back on pictures of what I looked like then, and I kind of realized I was quite scruffy. And I'd come out of like a built environment engineering boiler room sales scenario where Some people, if you are taking care of your appearance, you literally look like you walked out of the set of Wolf of Wall Street, for example, or you're at the other end of the spectrum and you look like you're an engineer. So I'd come from that kind of environment, and I'd stepped into the world that was not, I wouldn't say more corporate, but I would say the people that I'm talking to aren't on the tools. So it's a very different conversation. The jokes in the office are very different, historically in recruitment. The HR department's usually tucked away somewhere and you've not seen them. Coming from that kind of environment into a much more, I suppose, techie, different vibe. It was just talking to different people. It was a big culture shock to the beginning. So yeah, definitely a few surprises.
Nice. Yeah, no doubt. Was there a moment though you realized, you know what, this is the right path for me? I'm onto something now.
I don't think there was a moment when I was like, oh my God, this is now my future. And look, any person in a corporate SaaS role that does say that, there's got to be an element of bollocks in what they're saying generally.
Yeah.
But there was a bit where I was like, I'd probably say 6 months into the product that I was selling, I bought into the product and I was like, do you know what? I like this. I like the brand that I'm working for. I like the product that I'm selling, and I like the people that are running it. So when I look at where I'm at, and I'm quite a lazy human being, so I don't want to keep changing jobs. So in the same way that I'm contracted to work for an employer and deliver on my certain deliverables, I feel like when you're working for an employer, they've got responsibility to hold up their deliverables as well. And it's usually, building that environment that you want to work in, showing that room for progression and so on and so forth, the standard kind of route to progression, right? And I just got that from the company that I was working at. So I could see myself selling this product and buying into this brand for 5 years minimum. Do you know what I mean? And 7 years down the line, I'm still here. So I wouldn't say it was this is the industry for me side of things. I think tech is definitely more of an interest, but I would also say as well that the company I'm working for has made me want to stay for the duration that I have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, mate, and that's fair. It's I guess it can be a bit of a gradual process. The only reason I asked, mate, is because I had like an epiphany moment 6, 7 months into the role when I was doing it. Completely different type of role coming in from recruitment, but I remember I think I started okay, and then just had a massive blip. And I was like, wow, I need to really throw myself into understanding this product a bit better. I mean, look, you and I both work that product. It's not the most complex product on the market, but you still have to give it some due care and attention. Otherwise, you're winging it, right? And I
Yeah.
think that was my mentality a lot. And I kind of just flew by the seat of my pants. But I think 6 months in, I sat down or 5 months in, and me and Carlo came up with a plan. And I had a cold calling background regardless. So I always, even in recruitment, I used to drum up. I sat on the desk just completely cold, and I drummed up new business. The new business side for me from recruitment, winning jobs, was the bit I excelled in. Finding good candidates and making them stick, I was terrible. So that new business bit really helped me, mate, because I came in and I just bashed the phones.
Yeah.
And I remember it clicked around sort of April, May time for me the following year. So about 6, 7 months into the role. And at that point, I started turning in good months. I started doing deals regularly, and I just got into a rhythm. And then I was like, wow, it just changed. My whole outlook on everything changed. I started loving the job that I was doing. I used to
Mhm.
buzz for a Sunday night, and most people have Sunday blues, and I was like buzzing to go to work on Monday because I knew I had deals to
Yeah.
close. So I was that loser. But yeah, that's the only reason I asked, because it's sort of 6, 7 months in, I can tell you exactly the point where I was like, yeah, no, this is for me.
Yeah.
Coincidentally is when I started billing, so maybe started making some money, probably helped.
It does. Yeah.
But
It's also a different, like, it's a night, like, I feel like it's a different environment from recruitment as well. Like, I know exactly what you mean about the Sunday scaries, right? I did find that maybe you're still kind of in a new job and you're still kind of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed a little bit, but I generally don't get the Sunday scaries as much And I've worked a few different jobs, right? So I've done some very different style jobs. But I can't remember a scenario working in SaaS when I've had that kind of like Sunday scare, because you can kind of manage your time a little bit. And exactly like you said, and maybe it was just coming out of recruitment where there's so many aspects that aren't in your control. There's so much that is in your control. So you can take control of your day a lot easier than you can do when
Yeah.
you're kind of, yeah, effectively.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, my man. Christian, what's one thing you wish someone had told you before you started in SaaS?
That's
Don't
a real,
don't take the job.
yeah, yeah. Um, I mean, I don't really,
Because
it was so
here's
new
how
to
we
me.
viewed you when you joined, because you didn't actually join on my team at the start. You
Yeah.
moved over after a few months, I think. So when you first joined, everyone was like, no one knew how to take you. Everyone was like, who is this character? And you'd walk around and you came across super confident. You also came across as someone that didn't really care about what other people thought. The last character we had like that, and he was still there at the time, was Mark, the Edge. And and I remember thinking, I was like, because he's on Corp, I was like, we've got this on agency now. I was like, this guy's interesting. No one knew how to take you. We talk behind your back, because obviously we didn't know you then. And we'd be like, what's everyone think of Christian? He's like, oh yeah, he's a bit eccentric, isn't he? He's a bit OTT. I wish he'd tone it down. And I think you just came in unapologetically you, which turned out to be the best thing ever, because I'm so glad you didn't tone anything down or change anything about you, mate. We're all about our own personalities. And I think you brought something to the office that everyone was like, you know what? Christian just adds so much to this office. And we felt it when you left, actually. And I'm hoping if someone gave you that advice of, hey, mate, like if you start a new job, just tone yourself down a bit. I'm so glad you didn't listen to them, because that office was a better place with you in it, in my opinion. And we already were on the crest of a wave. We were doing very well as a business and we were
Yeah.
billing, but you came in and just really added something. It's really tough to do that, to come into an environment where the team and everyone and this whole sales team in general, both teams are doing very well, for a new personality to come in raw and then elevate the culture, elevate the environment, elevate the atmosphere. Did you find that, or I suppose you're just you,
I mean,
right?
I had no idea what I was doing. So I effectively, in any scenario to which I don't know what I'm doing, I just act superly overconfident, because you you can, if you're confident enough about anything, you'll get by. So I was just winging it. All I knew is that I tell you what, actually, if there was anything, it would be to understand the product I'm selling a little bit more when I was going in. So I'd moved into this whole new set, and I did kind of think to myself, okay, let's just go in for a blanket machine gun approach kind of coming in. So I assumed I don't really know much about the solution, but if I call enough people and have enough conversations, I'll do it. And if anyone asks me, do I know what I'm doing? I'm just going to smile massively, nod my head and say, yeah, of course I do. And then crack on and suffer in silence, basically, which is that. And then eventually kind of, you make some friends, you start asking questions. And then you have that barrier of what is a stupid question, what isn't a stupid question. And the beauty is ask all of the questions, because you're not really going to know if it's a stupid question until someone said, can you stop asking stupid questions? And then you can kind of slowly a few of those and you start weaning it out. But I'd probably say, yeah, it would be just to have understood a little bit more about what I was selling and who I was selling it to before jumping in, which I suppose it would be a want for kind of any role you're going into, really, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly, mate. Exactly. But I think you climatized pretty well and pretty quick. You also came in. It came across to us like you came in as a sponge. You were willing to soak everything up and learn. So you may have come in with some bravado, but I think the beauty of it is you were super humble as well. Like you were all ears and all eyes when people are giving you advice and kind of giving you some guidance as well, which I think has just stood you in really good stead. And we'll come on to kind of what your career looks like right now. But when you started, mate, I want to ask you, did you have a buddy lunch? Did that still run when you joined the business?
Do you know? And we were chatting about this earlier, and I can't remember. I can't remember if I had a buddy lunch. I tell you what I did do. Right, so I went for a beer with Lisa.
Yeah.
So first I had a couple of interviews with Broadbean, and then Steve basically said, right, we want you to, we're going to put you on Lisa's team. We want you to meet Lisa. If you two get on, then you'll be fine. So we're like, all right, brilliant. And it was like, we're actually having a few beers in the office, so everyone's going to be here. You can have a couple of beers, blah blah blah. Come on this night. And it was like, I think it was a Wednesday evening at Capiche, epic establishment. Um, and I came along. We'd had a few beers, etc. Me and Lisa ended up going off and drinking afterwards. So what turned into be like, let's have a quick beer just to see if we get along, turned into a serious night on the booze. To me and Lisa going through, it was either Waterloo Station or Liverpool Street Station, screaming Stevie Nicks at the top of our voices coming down the escalator. Who I'd only learned who Stevie Nicks was that evening as well. So didn't realise. I think because I thought for years that Stevie Nicks was a dude. Turns out she's a woman, and I know loads of her songs. Didn't know that. So that was the first night. So no, I didn't have a buddy lunch, but I did get pretty boozy with the team, which I think is almost just as good. You had a buddy lunch though, didn't you? Yours was probably my favourite.
Well, I'll tell you mine, and then I'll tell you my favourite buddy lunch. So I'll go through this. So, and again, I know we're name dropping here for the viewers who probably don't have a clue, but I had a buddy lunch with a chap called Josh. Right, he's obviously he was fairly I think I'd say senior. He'd been there a couple of years before, and I joined the business, Christian, very opposite to you. I joined the business and I was like, right, I'm going to keep myself to myself. I'm going to keep my head screwed on, because the previous company, I'd always be the first one leading the charge to the pub and the last one to leave. And I was like, I don't want to give that kind of impression. I want to take this seriously. I'm going to come in and just be, keep on the straight and narrow. So buddy lunch comes around on the Friday. I get introduced to Josh. Josh and I go to Hazev, and I think it was called something different then. And we're chatting away, and he's just like, right, I'll have a beer. Neil, what you having? And I was like, I'll have a lemonade, mate. And he looked at me and he was like, oh, look, you don't want a beer? And I was like, no, I'm good, mate. I'll just have a lemonade. And he was like, right, okay, cool. Saw the lunch out, and Josh didn't speak to me for the next 6 weeks. We'd walk past each other, and I think he just thought, well, I know he thought, because he's obviously a mate now, but he was just like, I don't think this guy's going to fit in. My beer ban didn't last too long, but I tell you what, my favourite buddy lunch is Carlo. And I thought, mate, this was hilarious. Someone joined his team, and he took them out. So he was taking them out at buddy lunch. I think it was his team or maybe someone else. I don't know. Anyway, he was the senior, right? So they went out for lunch, young lady, and they went to some restaurant, and he sat down. And as he sat down, he looked up and he realised she'd sat on a different table. So he was just like, oh, right. Obviously, he thought, right, I've just made an honest mistake here. As he went to get up to switch tables, she was like, no, that was deliberate. And he was like, oh, right. Okay. So he sat down and it got really awkward, right? And then he went, so what were you up to before this? Just a pretty standard question.
But they're sat on different tables when they're having this conversation. So they're exchanging pleasantries on two different sides of the restaurant.
Yeah, so he's talking to a different table, and he's like, oh, so what did you do before? And she looked up at him and looked at him and said, I don't think that's any of your fucking business, is it? And he was like, oh, I guess not. Anyway, I can't remember how the story ended, but either I think he went back to the office and she's like, I'll come back in a few minutes. I think she just never returned. I think she actually left and that was the end of it. And no one ever saw her again. So that's my favorite buddy lunch story. I don't think that one can be eclipsed, but
I
maybe
remember.
someone does it.
I remember hearing about that. So that was one of like the epic stories that would kind of sit around the office for that would get told. You know, anytime someone new starts or anytime there's a buddy lunch happening, that story gets told. And I've just still got this image now, just like Carlo sitting at one table, she's sitting at the other, and it's just there, like shouting over. So where were you? Where were you before this? Sorry, mate. Could you stop talking to me, please?
Oh, it's so good, isn't it? It's just, and unfortunately, we have to imagine it because we weren't there. I wish I was there. Fly on the wall, and that one would be the best. Right, Christian. Before we continue, guys, if you're enjoying this type of content, please give it a like and subscribe. It will let me know that you're enjoying it, and then I will then in turn produce more of it and get more guests on. Maybe not quite like Christian, but I'll do my absolute best. Right, Christian. You then move to Australia. A year in, you move within the business. You get your transfer.
I didn't move within
Fast
the business.
forward.
I
You
didn't. So
didn't.
it was no, there was no jobs. It was mate, the start. So get this one right. So the stars aligned when I came over here. So I bought the ticket. So I was like, I'm going to move to Australia. It's going to happen. My brother was over here and I was chatting to him and he was like, mate, just come out. Like it's a good life over here. I'm doing well, blah, blah, blah. And I'm quite similar to my brother. And I was like, okay, so if he's made what he's done and if he's doing really well out there, there's a good opportunity. I could probably make this work. So I was like, screw it. So I bought a ticket basically. And I had, I think 6 months. So I bought the ticket in May and I bought the ticket for October. And I was like, I've basically got to sort my stuff out by October to go. I had no money saved, anything like that. And I was like, let's just see what happens. So I get to Australia and we had the managing or the MD or the director of the Australian office had come over to the UK for a bit. And I said to her, I was like, look, just to give you a heads up, I've just bought a ticket to Australia. Actually, I'd love to come and work for the company over there. Is there any opportunities? She was like, look, we've got a full team. It wasn't a big team in Australia, small office. She was like, look, we've got a small team. But it's a pretty tight-knit community over here. So just get your ass over. And if we've got nothing for you directly, then we'll get you across the industry, blah, 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 and we'll find you something. And I was like, okay, cool. So I basically the dollar is, at the time, the dollar was 2 to 1 to the pound, right? So you think going over there, you're minted. But Sydney is not a cheap city. And as you can imagine, coming out in October, I was ready to party. My money went very quickly. And before I know it, I think I had about a week's worth of like relaxation. And then I was like, I need to get a job now. So within 2 weeks in Australia, I needed a job. I was desperate, mate. I was like, this is too much. Sleeping on my friend's sofa. I needed to sort that out, blah, blah, blah. I was like, right, I need to sort this shit out. So I interviewed in Plenty. One of the guys here, he actually set me up. So I got set up in a pub in on like the Sydney, like kind of like in the Sydney CBD. And he said, here's what we're going to do. We haven't got a job obviously in Broadbean, but we are going to introduce you to as many people as we can in the industry. So I just sat there all day and people came and went, and I just kind of basically unofficially interviewed a ton of different companies, recruitment agencies, SaaS, etc. Just kind of did like rolling interviews. And then I was like, interviewing at every single recruitment agency, because my mission is I needed sponsorship. So I needed visa arrangements and things like that. It's not like being in the EU, you can just come over and set up. Like you got your working holiday visa, then you need to get sponsored, then you go for permanent residency. It's a journey, right? I've only just got to the bit now, 7 years down the line, where I'm like permanent residency, going through citizenship, right? So it's an absolute journey. So I was like, crap. And then this 2 weeks has come by. This is Thursday now, and I had to give an answer. I'd interviewed at so many places, and for every place I was like, look, just to give you a heads up, if the Broadbean job comes in, I'm going to be taking that. That is my priority. And they're like, yeah, no worries at all. So I'm holding off all these answers. Thursday comes in, and I'm like, I need to give somebody an answer by tomorrow. Otherwise, I'm going to have to start from the beginning. and I am brassic now, FYI. So I'm like, I really need to start working soon. Talking like beans on toast and cans of tuna for dinner style, like brassic. And I was like, okay, so what am I going to do? I was like, all right. And I don't like tuna, by the way. So I was like, all right, we're gonna have to just brave this. Anyway, so Thursday I get a phone call from Lisa, the director of the office. She was like, "Are you still looking for?" I was like, "Yes, I'm looking for the job." She was like, "Oh, okay, brilliant. We've actually got an opportunity that's just opened up." So one of the girls in the office had handed in their notice on the agency desk, and I was like, "No." She was like, "You still looking?" I was like, "Yes, I can start tomorrow." So I started the following Tuesday. We were in, and it was just no looking back from there. So it was luck, mate. It was pure luck that I managed to stick it out. Obviously, opportunity and hard work has helped me stay there for 7 years, right? You don't stay in sales, in the same sales job for 7 years without being able to perform. But that first element was a serious bit of stars aligning.
Class, mate. Yeah, it's a great story. It's coming back to me now. I think you were dealing with it was Lisa over there, wasn't it?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, no, mate, that's look, sometimes you need an element of luck. Some can say you also make your own luck, right? You booked a ticket, you went out there, and you went big, mate. I love that story. I think that's it's great because you're still at the same business, which is
Mm.
what makes the story, I think. But let's fast forward then. So fast forward to today. You've been with the business 7 years. You've been down under for 6 of them. You're absolutely smashing it from what I hear in Australia. Can you walk us through what your role looks like now, firstly, and then we can jump into how well you're doing?
Yeah, definitely. So I'd say it's a bit of a mix between. I mean, my role is BD, right? So I'm a business development person, but it's a different scenario in our office because we went through a few different levels of leadership. So the team is kind of chopped and changed, and it led us to be pretty self-sufficient for a long period of time because we didn't have. One thing you will hear about working in an Australian office for an international company is Australia tends to get tucked away a little bit. A lot of organizations, when they've got an office in Australia, it gets forgotten about. It's a blessing and a curse, right? It means that you're pretty freedom. You don't have them breathing down your neck every 5 minutes, and you get a lot of flexibility to operate, which is beautiful. It's a really nice way of living, but it means that you haven't got much resource, right? So you end up having to be self-sufficient. So, you build out your own sales decks, you put in place your own kind of partnership relationships. You just become pretty able to operate on your own initiative, if that makes sense. And then now, fast forward a couple of years, now we've got awesome management in place. We've got really good structure of the team, and we're going in a really good place. So it's kind of my role now is BD. It's out and out business development with what's the word I'm looking for? I suppose with an investment, with the kind of investment into where the office and the company is going, if that makes sense. So I feel bought in to the direction we're going, and I do feel that when you have conversations, that your word gets taken for value when you're having these conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. I get it, mate. So you're still in the business development side of it. You're still on the new business side, right? You're
Yeah.
still in charge of bringing in net new logos on. Can you talk to us a bit about billings? We don't have to talk exact numbers, but you've been pretty successful from my
Mm.
understanding. You're up there in the billing stakes and the billing rankings. Have I heard that right, or am I barking up the wrong tree here?
I mean, well, you've got to remember that the Aussie dollar's half of everyone else's. So whatever I do, it's never quite. We've got to work twice as hard as everyone else to get the same numbers on the board. But mate, look, I don't know how I compare from the rest of the organization where I sit in the rankings. What I can say is, I went from when I first kind of came over here, I was billing circa, if we're talking just ACV, so you're talking just the annual value of the contract rather than the actual multi-year agreement off the back of it, for example, you're looking at like 100k, 120k, 150k when I first started a year, to now, just in that first value, 400, 500 grand a year.
Yeah.
So I've gone from, bringing in at the maximum 150k in a year to now bringing in multi-year contracts in the millions. effectively, as an accumulative, not single contracts worth millions, but as an accumulative for what I'm billing throughout the year. It's, it goes into that when you're looking at the full value of the contract.
Yeah. And that's honestly, you're coming in raw, right? And you're coming in starting right on the sort of grassroots on. You're coming in business development, getting on the phones, and then you build up pipeline, and you can actually progress through. But it's great to hear that, mate, because it you've become like an invaluable part, not just of the team over there, but as of the company. You're relied on as being one of the strongest billers, and that is just great to see, mate, because you sort of jumped about in London. You started in a team, and then you sort of then had to move to a different team. You joined my team, and then you kind of, it was very kind of stop start. And I think we could have done a bit more to make your, I suppose, onboarding a bit more seamless. Obviously, they can get a bit tricky, and you always had the support, but it's nice to see that you've gone out there and just kind of carved out a Christian lane space for yourself, mate. So I think kudos to you, mate. Congrats on that as well. You're quite a humble guy from when we talk about stuff that you're doing well. So, I tip my hat to you, mate. I think you're doing a great, stellar job. So it's great to hear for me as well.
I think I'm probably the
It's
most
great
humble
to hear.
guy you've ever met, to be fair. There isn't anybody that is more humble than I am. I can assure you that.
No, I think when it comes down to it, you can be. But look, I want to give some advice for our viewers here as well. So we got people that tune in that may be quite new to the SaaS space or quite junior in their career. Some will be doing a 360 role. Some will be starting off as SDRs, moving into AEs. Some will be junior AEs. What's your approach, and what would be your message to people that want to be as consistent as you've been over the last few years? How do you remain a consistent top performer? Are there any habits or tips and tricks that you can share with our viewers?
I think, I mean, there's so you've got two scenarios, right? You've got the technical side of this, and you've got the kind of life coach side of this, right? So if you start with the life coach side of it, and this is something that my brother said to me. He was like, you just want to be a safe pair of hands. So, and this, I suppose this isn't really how to succeed in a sales role. This is how to succeed in any corporate role anywhere. You've just got to be looked at as a safe pair of hands. If you can come across as somebody that can be trusted to do a task, and the words that you say and the conversations you have and what you bring to the table actually provides value, it makes life a lot easier, because when you do have an idea or when you want to try and do something, there is that trust to allow you to be able to do that. So it works out really well. So that's probably the first kind of start, is that penny really clocked, and I was like, okay, first things I need to organize here is my personal brand. So I want to come across. And this is where, when I said to you, like, people always said to me, he's a good guy, he works hard, but he's not very polished. And when I kind of look back to pictures I look like then, and look, I've gone from, partying Friday, Saturday nights, pretty much every weekend, and turning into a bit of a ragtag generally, to now having a fairly strict skincare regime and exercising as many times a week as I can, right? So I'm, but I think you want to present yourself well. You want to look like you have made an effort to come in and be there wherever you're being, whatever capacity it is, I think is a huge one. So building that personal brand out, I think, has been super, super important. Laying down relationships and foundations. Like, this is something I learned in recruitment. It's anyone you're talking to when you're working in the same industry as them, you don't know where they're going to be in 5 years' time. So any relationship you make could be super beneficial. And one thing I've always, and this might just be because I'm a massive people pleaser, and I get social anxiety when people don't like me, but having the thought of coming away from a conversation and them going, like, oh, he's a bit of a knob, or I probably won't talk to him again. I want to make sure that if I'm meeting a new person for the first time, especially in a work-related scenario, they come away and they go, I want to talk to him again, or at a minimum, he's not a knob. Do you know what I mean? And I think that helps massively. And then studying, right? At the end of the day, if you're selling software and if you're selling tech, you're solving a problem. If you're selling the tech to people that are not technical, you need to be able to answer their questions in a way that they can understand. And the easiest way to do that is understanding the product you're selling. You know, if you're running a demo and they're asking you questions and you're just saying, no, we can't do that, or I don't know, I'm going to come back to you, fair play 100%. But if you can answer it or provide a workaround there and then on the call, again, it just applies more confidence into the conversation. And it kind of, they're like, okay, cool, that was a good first experience, especially on on the SDR side of things. You're probably not going to go into that technical side of the conversation. So at a minimum, you want to be understanding the kind of problems that this organization or this person you're talking to is going to be achieving and how your product solve those problems generally, not just that you've got the best product and it's great. No one cares. Everyone's product is the best product and it's great. It's how is this going to solve my problem? That's what you're experiencing. This part of this product is how it's going to fix that issue you're having. Does that make sense?
Does indeed, mate. No, wise words. I think you're spot on there, guys. If you are listening, I think that you've laid that out in great stages in terms of how someone can come in, because we've got SDRs that are very junior into a role and they don't really know what they're doing. You know what it's like when you're like 17, 18, 19 years old, joining a company for the first time or even post uni. You need some structure. And what you've outlined there fundamentally is good structure. Yes, be self-aware as well, right? But if we can lay some strong foundations and get into some habits, the only thing I'd probably add to that caveat is or just add to it really, is that structure always helped me out. I always felt when I was coming in and just winging it,
Yeah.
I was never as productive. I used to like to win the first hour of the day, right? As cliche as it sounds. And I used to win it by prepping the night before. So I'd have a
Yeah.
list. You know what I'm like? I'm so old school. I still have a pen and paper and pad, right? So I'd write down the list of all the people that I'm going to call the next day. But I'll do that the night before.
Yeah.
And that extra bit of prep means I can come in and I don't have to do that first up. It's already ready for me. And just getting in, just regimented, same time every day, and just kind of, right, here's my routine. I'm not saying don't be flexible, but I think structure is a really good thing, and prepping the night before for the day ahead
Mate,
means
$100%.
you're probably 95% ahead of everyone else who hasn't bothered doing it, right?
Definitely. And do you know what I think so I work slightly different because one good, like one thing I've always noticed about you is you're very good with discipline. So you can set your day as to how you want your day structured. As if you come in, you'll say, right, I'll gym in the morning. I'm going to come in, I'm going to make these phone calls at 10 o'clock. This is this task at 20. So you'll create yourself like a timetable throughout the day that you know. I can't operate like that, right? So but the same thing, I still want to achieve the same things. So rather than saying, okay, for this time period, this is what I'm going to be doing, it would be, okay, well, I need to achieve, for me to walk away and have a successful day, I need to have, set up X amount of demos or spoken to people. And you kind of work back. So if you're selling SaaS, your goal from that conversation is to book that demo, right? That's the main the thing that you want. But, you're smashing the phone. What's 3 in 100 calls, you're going to get that golden where it's like, yeah, sick, let's sort out a demo now, right? So then you kind of work your way back. Did I speak to the right person? Am I building out a company profile? Blah, blah, blah. And and as long as you're getting those wins throughout the day and you started with that kind of initial plan of what you wanted to achieve, it does help you just kind of work. It's what they say, doesn't it? It does sound cringy, but the working smarter, not harder type scenario, otherwise you're just running around like a busy idiot, basically.
Yep. Well said, mate. Well said. Now, guys, if you're still watching, by the way, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for sticking around. Stick around because we're going to go into the world of AI and how that's going to potentially impact the world of SaaS in 2026. Before we do that, Christian, you've done a ton of deals over the last 7 years. You're not going to remember all of them. If you can, though, what's your proudest deal or moment so far? Does anything come to mind?
I'd probably say recently. So this year I closed a deal with an organization in mainland China. And it was, I can't kind of go into details of names and things like that, but think like a big e-commerce platform, right? So think like not to the level of Amazon, but the kind of function that they're doing, but huge company, right? So really, really good
Yeah.
opportunity for the organization. But they didn't speak much English. So it was me, an implementation manager, and ChatGPT effectively translating everything that I wanted to say. And the whole sales process was me writing everything I wrote was in English, and it was then translated into conversational Mandarin afterwards using AI. And it was just, I don't even know whether it was a moment to be proud of. But it was just like, it was cool. It was cool to be able to communicate in that side of things and get everything over the line in the way that you wanted to get over with no issues. Do you know what I mean? I'd probably say being the proud moment, that would definitely be up there. That's when you're like, all right, I kind of know what I'm doing now, and I can navigate this.
Nice. Love that, mate. Love that. And moving on from that, Christian, what about the funniest deals? Any deals or even no deals that kind of stick out that maybe blew up spectacularly for the right or wrong reasons? Is there anything that comes to mind? Any horror stories, mate?
Yeah, I've got two. Well, I don't. I
Hit
have
me.
loads. I have loads, but I've got two main ones that I probably won't get in trouble for talking about. So the first one was I was doing a demo face to face. So obviously, pre-COVID, you did business with human beings in a room with other human beings, right? So you would have multiple people in a room and you would be there physically having conversations with these people and talking about what you're doing. And you would stand at the front if you're selling software and you would show them the demo on the software, right?
Mhm.
So this was in the UK, and it was it was one of the last, so both of this actually is two of the last deals that I was working on before I came over here. And one of them was in Nottingham. So I had to get the train up to Nottingham. And it was a scorch. It was probably one of the only days of the British year that we hit over 25 degrees. And in the UK, that is scorching, especially with UK buildings. They're built to keep the heat in. So anyway, I'm obviously on one of the hottest days of the year. I'm going to wear a pale blue shirt to my meeting, which is always a really good idea to wear on a hot day. So I'm coming in and standard with the British train system. It was delayed, the train. So I'm already in a rush now, and I've got to walk uphill from the Nottingham train station to where this place was, right? I don't know Nottingham at all, so I'm not going to pretend I remember the route I took, but I can tell you there was a massive fucking hill to get to this office, and it was a bloody hot day, and I was wearing a pale blue shirt. And by the time I got to the office, I was already huffing and puffing, and I'm late. So I'm not happy at all. Anyway, so they put me in this room. And there was no air conditioning in this office. No air. This was the hottest room I have ever been in my life. They didn't even crack a bloody window. And they were like, here we are. And I was like, okay, awesome. They're like, oh, cool. So if you can just set up, we'll get it. I was like, no, right, brilliant. No worries. They told me that, so they had, they didn't have an HDMI cable for me. But I had a spare HDMI cable in my bag. So anything you're going to learn, if you're going on a meeting, take your own connectivity cables just in case, because they didn't have one for me. I had to use my own, and it was a short cable. It's probably about this big. So I couldn't, usually in these scenarios, you would sit at the table, maybe at the head of the table, and there'd be a screen behind you, and you'd be demoing on the screen on your laptop, right? And you'd be talking through screen share. Well, the cable wasn't long enough for me to sit at the table. So I had to stand next to the TV screen with my laptop in one hand and my mouse and my finger on the trackpad of the mouse, talking through the screen using one hand to type and do everything with this demo, which sounds pretty easy, right? But the room was so hot, I'm sweating so much that the sweat is dripping off my face onto my laptop, and I actually had to get my shirt screen on the trackpad and wipe the sweat off the trackpad because the mouse wouldn't move because my laptop was too wet because I was sweating so much because this room was so fucking hot. So I got through the whole demo. By the time I finished the demo, my shirt's dark blue. Dark blue. I am dripping. So I was like, it's quite hot in this room. At the very, very part of this fucking demo, one of the people in the office came in with an electric fan. like a big fan. It was like, oh, do you need a fan in here? I'd been in there for an hour sweating out, and she rocks in with this fan. That was up there with some of the worst demos. They didn't buy the product. I don't think I wouldn't have bought from me on that day, to be fair. So lesson learnt then, ask if they've got AC in advance, and don't wear pale blue on a hot day. And the second one, and you might want to edit out this story, you might not. I don't know the kind of vibe that you're going with, but it's a funny story. And
We're going uncensored, mate. So yeah, it's got to stay in.
All right, fair do. It's not a bad one, but it just depends on the people. So I working in like a big office, you like to play pranks on people, right? So I used to love playing pranks. You remember some of the pranks I used to play on some of the people, putting like plugging wireless keyboards into the back of people's laptops, playing tricks, etc. One of my favorite pranks that I like to do was you get someone's notebook, and it like far in the back of the notebook, so they might not find this for like 3 or 4 weeks, you draw a little penis. But you like a good, like, you know, a well thought out artistic copy of a pen, not a, you know, like 13. I'm talking Superbad the movie, the closing credits when they kind of go in proper characters. So anyway, you do those. So one of the lads, he worked in implementation, so I did it in the back of the book. He didn't have a massively client-facing role, so he did most of his stuff online, so I could draw a penis in the back of his book. He wasn't ever going to get in trouble. Okay, now I obviously was having meetings with people face to face, and I didn't realise that he got me back. And this was the last meeting I had before I came over here. And we're standing, and I'm talking them through, and I'm taking some notes, and I just went over to the next page, and there is, in an A5 paper, an entire page of just a massive penis sitting right there. And the guy was sat next to me, so we're sat next to each other on the table, and he's just looked over and looked at me, and I've got to like turn the page again, and and we both had a little smirk. It was a funny moment. We moved straight past it. But be careful when you play pranks, because they will come back and bite in the arse.
You started that trend in our office that stuck around for so damn long. I used to, sometimes I pop to the loo, I come back, and my whole pad is covered in cocks. And honestly, and then sometimes you evolve the game. So then it was like, right, someone opens their drawer, and it's not even at the top. It's like you take out the first thing. It's just like massive dong. Oh, mate, honestly, that trend started. It just went viral across our sales floor. There was that, and then you had like me and Scott like shooting people with Nerf guns as well on top of it. So it was cocks and Nerf pellets and bullets flying around for ages, mate.
Good office. That sounds like a good office.
It was a great office, mate. I will say on that as well, 2 cracking stories. It reminds me of one where you know Irvin, right? So Irvin and I went down to a meeting in Tunbridge Wells, and Irvin opened the door because he was with our parent company at the time, right? So he'd opened the door, set this meeting up. So I was like, yes, sweet, let's go down, we'll take it down. And we're going down, we're meeting with the CEO, we're meeting with the head of operations, and we're meeting with the marketing director, right? So it's no small meeting. And we get there, and they take us into this room, and it's a big old room. And instead of plugging it into a TV or anything, they've got a big projector. So we're like, all right, sweet, we'll just hook it up to projector. It just projects out onto the wall. It's like massive, like probably like 80, 90-inch projection, right? So we're sitting down, Irvin does the pleasantries, we get on, we're having a conversation, we're doing a bit of discovery. And then we get to the point where we're doing a demo, right? So I'm in charge of running the software demo. Irvin's there, set the scene. We've plugged it into the projector, and as I'm typing away and talking to them, the screen's gone out of focus. The projector, something's wrong with it, right? So it's gone a little bit blurry, but we've already started the demo. So I can't stop. So I'm carrying on. And I don't know if you remember, I don't know if the platform's still the same, but on the second page, when you're filling out all the mandatory fields, I'm doing that. And obviously that's the one with the job title as well on there, right? So I always used to go default account manager, just very straightforward. And then you fill out all the other fields.
So I think let's just map it out. So for anyone listening that obviously doesn't know what we sell. So it's a job posting software. Step one, you're going to select the job boards. So step two is an admin form where you're going to be writing in information around the job. And then step 2, you're going to preview the advert and send it out. So we're talking online form here, page 2, right?
Exactly that. Page 2, job title bit, right? So I fill it out, account manager, but I'm obviously talking to them as well. Now, we can't see anything at the moment because it's all blurry. So Irvin stepped up and he's like, I'm going to fix this. Don't worry. So whilst we're running this meeting, I got Irvin standing on the table, this boardroom table that we're all part of, bashing the projector. Right? I'm trying to ignore him, and Irvin's not easy to ignore, right? He's a big personality at the best of times, right? And he's a top lad, so he's trying to fix this and still get involved in the conversation. I've got the CEO, I've got the head of operations asking me questions, the marketing director asking me questions. I'm typing away and also focusing on them, and then suddenly Irvin's like, "Boom, got it, sorted," and it zooms in clear focus on the job title field. But as I'm talking to them whilst I'm typing, I've missed the O out on account. So now the title reads account manager without the O in big letters. Bearing in mind, I don't know these people. They don't know me. And they've just seen account without the O plastered all over their wall. And I've gone, oh shit. I've looked at them. They've looked at me. There's a bit of silence. And then the CEO, Paddy, just started cracking up. He's like, that's an interesting job title, isn't it? And the head of operations then made a joke about it. He's like, oh, I wouldn't mind that job. I was like, fair play, mate. And we all had a laugh and a giggle. It was a quality meeting, mate. But just the image of Irvin on the desk smashing this projector to pieces while I'm trying to run a demo. We ended up closing the deal, which
fair play,
which is
mate.
great.
Fair
And then
play.
we actually tried to upsell them. So Irvin got me involved. I sold them the software piece, and then we tried to upsell them with another product we had under the umbrella. So I took Ian down with me as well.
Was
And
that like a
or
text
Ian
kernel,
Mac.
jobby?
Yeah, TK, yeah. And he went down there. When he went down there, he put his phone down on the table, and the first thing one of the chaps did in the meeting was knock over their glass of water all over his phone and laptop. So
Same
it's one of those
company.
messy ones, mate. Same company, but
Same
mate,
company.
yeah,
Blimey.
but mate, it was just one. It was an honest mistake, and it was funny as hell. I'm still in good contact with those guys over there. One of the guys is still there. So great company, great outfit, great agency.
Yeah,
But yeah, we still laugh about that story to this day. So I
that was
thought I
good.
would share it, mate. Yeah, it was a good one. We had a few, mate. I had a few with Carlo in particular, but we'll have to save that for another day. Right, Christian, before we get into the back end of this podcast, we need to talk, or we are getting into the back end of this podcast. There's a lot of talk online about AI, the future of sales and AI. How does it kind of shake things up? 2026 is around the corner, mate. And AI is becoming more and more prevalent through the tools. You're getting loads of different types of tools, and you get guys that call themselves prompt engineers now, right? You can use AI to your benefit, or you can stay away from it and kind of be scared of it. How is it changing things in your world already, or is it?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, look, it's we're in the sweet spot of I think the AI rollout or the new tech renaissance that we're in at the moment, because there's still an element. They haven't made it good enough yet that you trust it to do a communications job. It's good, but it's not. It's if I depending on what you're selling, effectively, you're still going to need a human component in play, right? That said, you don't need as many people. So, for example, if you're in an AER, SDR role, if you're in an AE role, anything kind of entry level, then you want to be trying to progress as soon as possible, or you're going to need to differentiate yourself because there are so many AI outreach tools out there. Now, look, I've played with a few, and again, it completely depends on what you're selling, right? You're not going to have an AI solution talk through complicated cybersecurity, sales processes and things like that yet, right? But if you're buying a Netflix subscription or something like that, you might have an AI salesperson there because it's a simple transactional process. So, it depends. It really, really depends on the industry you're working in, the kind of tech you're selling, right? So it's not a all horses for courses scenario, but it is changing things. So, on the positive side of things, it's allowing. Now, I am historically, I can communicate verbally. I am shocking at reading and writing. I'll remind you again, I've got, 3.5, 4.5 GCSEs and an MVQ level 2 in catering and hospitality. None of those were in English literature. My reading and writing is shocking, mate. So for me, it makes it really, really easy for me to communicate to people via email, and it helps me to be able to draft out intricate, complicated emails in a fraction of the time that I would have done previously, which speeds up my day massively. It helps me to communicate with organizations in completely different countries and languages that I don't understand and still close deals, right? So there's a ton of benefit at the end of the day, but you don't need as many people to do it. So on one side, it is going to make a salesperson's role a lot easier. On the other side, it's organizations don't need as many people in the role. So you just have to be wary that we are in a bit where people are much more dispensable at the moment than they have been. If you looked at COVID when nobody wanted to move jobs, and at that time, the candidate was king. And it was, you spoke to recruitment agencies and they could never find business on because people weren't hiring, right? There was that big old kind of scenario where, they had loads of jobs on, and all they had to do was they couldn't find any candidates. Nobody wanted to move jobs. It's now flipped on its head, right? So there aren't as many jobs out there. There's a lot more people looking for work. It's a lot more competitive. So you just have to keep that in mind, right? But at the same time, just so that we're not kind of finishing that point on a negative, it's as easy as possible to be put in that scenario. We are living in a world now where you could lose your job tomorrow and, start pretty much whatever you want within a couple of months' time, or you can take that knowledge, that tech, etc., and you can put it into any scenario. So, I think it's super exciting.
Yeah, I think that's well said, mate. And I was going to ask you, do you think, because there's a lot of people out there I'm speaking to, SDRs in particular, but also AEs, more SDRs though that are worried about AI replacing them. I did a podcast a few weeks back where I said, 36% of teams in SaaS across the SaaS space have started streamlining their SDR teams, and I think there's this misconception potentially, or perception rather, that SDRs feel that AI is coming for their jobs and they're getting done. What's your take on that? Do you think there's an element of truth to that, or is it really the SDRs that are going to leverage AI the best are the ones that are going to thrive, and the ones that don't are just going to start lagging?
Look, I think it's a bit of both. At the end of the day, if I'm an organization and I previously had 20 SDRs, I now only need 10 at most, right? But what I do want, and what you're going to have, I can guarantee definitely at the moment is, and especially if you're selling a fairly complicated SaaS solution, or if you're selling a good kind of SaaS solution, I can pretty much guarantee that whilst an AI solution can go out there and find me a lead and bring that lead back, the way that it's going to qualify that lead is going to be completely different to if a human being was having that conversation, right? So if I'm an SDR and I'm having a conversation with an organization, I'm going to be able to read in the context of what they're saying. I'm going to be able to delve in between the lines of why they're asking certain questions, why are they experiencing certain pain points. And unless I set up my AI solution to predict that conversation is going to happen, the chances are it's not going to think to do those things because it works on a reactive kind of, fairly like linear how it's going to operate. So whilst 100%, it's, teams are going to get smaller. You don't need 20, 30 SDRs on a team now. You could do 5 to 10. But on the other side, the amount of companies that are popping up, it's not, when you look at these huge layoffs that happen and things like that, and all these people that have left, Facebook and things like that, they're not on the market for long. It's not like there's a shortage of tech companies out there that you can go and work at, And I think that's the important part is, the world's not out to get you, but the landscape is changing. So if you're not clocked on that the landscape is changing, and if you are playing that victim side of things, and then yeah, you might struggle a little bit. But if you are using AI to your advantage, and you're using AI to send your emails out quicker, to be more productive in your day, to have clearer conversations, to do the most unreal background checks of organizations that you can see, 5 minutes before you're in a meeting, you can get a complete synopsis of the company's 10 years just by doing a quick prompt into ChatGPT. Do you know what I mean? So you have all the tools necessary to be successful, but it is a more competitive market. So I suppose it's then, deciding which battles you're going to be going for and picking the ones that you think are going to be the most success. Or when you're looking at companies, if you're looking to get into an SDR role, just be a bit careful around the companies that you're looking at and the kind of salespeople that they want to be hiring, if that makes sense.
Perfect sense, mate. Well said. I think some really key points there you made. So no, and I think on the whole, I agree, mate. Before we wrap up, we've got to talk back onto you again, mate. You've jumped on this podcast. You've been the first guest on here. 2026 is round the corner, mate. You're doing some great stuff from a professional standpoint. What does 2026 look like for Christian Lane in terms of career?
Good question. To be fair, good question. We're in a really interesting time. To be fair, we've gone through. So our organisation has gone through a bit of an acquisition. So we're in a scenario now where we're bringing new solutions into the market. So we've got a really, really challenging task at the moment of introducing a new style solution that is AI based, but very different to what people are doing currently. So I'm in that beginning parts of a big conversation, right? So, kind of the landscape's changing, how people, and to bring it back onto what we do. So we focus on candidate sourcing. The whole goal is around job distribution, but bringing, helping organizations find talent for the most effective price and the most effective time frame using technology and AI in order to do so. And we're bringing solutions into a market that historically, we're telling people to think differently. Basically, we're saying, look, I know you like doing what you're doing, and I know you've been doing what you're doing for the past 5 to 10 years, and that's been working great, fantastic. But everyone else is doing this. This is getting cool. Look what they're doing in the US. Look, and one of the things you notice about in Australia is generally things happen technology wise. They get launched a lot out, like the US, for example. Then the UK pick them up, and then Australia will pick them up slightly afterwards. So we're in that bit at the moment where Australia is catching up to bring up this new tech, and people are a little bit standoffish about how to accept it, but very interested in hearing what it can do. So it's in that bit where, you haven't got enough use case to prove or to get the market share, but there's value in the product that you're selling, if that makes sense. So you get some really, really interesting conversations. So that's kind of where we're going. There's a big expansion for that in the market. We're going to look for hitting some new countries. So we've got Singapore's a big target market for us in 2026. And for me personally, that's a really, really good challenge because it's, you're selling into a whole different customer profile, to a whole different human being that you're talking to, right? When you're looking at selling across different cultures and different mannerisms and things like that, talking to different types of people, I find super interesting, right? So you can't have, I can have a conversation with you, I can't have the same conversation with someone else, right? So I'm kind of, everything I'm learning, I'm like, this is going to be good. I can now apply it to a whole new country where things are probably completely different. So it's a big learning curve.
Love it. Love it. Well, the future looks bright either way, mate. And I do have mad respect for you. I think you're a serious professional when it comes to actually getting down to business. I think there's very few people that I'd rather have a conversation with that, might have the knowledge that you have. So, look, guys, if you're watching this, feel free to reach out to Christian Lane, connect with him on LinkedIn. And if you're a business and you're looking to have a conversation, look, there's very few people out there that I'd push you towards having a conversation with, but Christian is definitely one of them. He'll give you some great consultative advice. And if the solution is not the right solution, you're looking for something else, he's the type of guy that will point you in the right direction. A true,
100%.
genuine helper within the industry, proven by his track record, been in the space now close to a decade. You can't go wrong having a conversation with Christian. So reach out to him. Make sure you do. He's on LinkedIn, Christian Lane. Mate, I've really enjoyed this conversation.
It's been good fun.
It's been fun. It's always a pleasure to see you. I know I've seen you more recently than, you know, some of the gaps we've had before, because I saw you a couple of months ago live and in the flesh. But thank you for jumping on from down under. And
It's been good. I don't think I've known you for 7 years, and I don't think you've ever said so many nice things to me in such a short period of time. It's been lovely. It's been great to hear.
I saved it all towards the end of the podcast where everyone's already switched off, so no one's going to see it, mate.
But it's not for them, it's for me. I feel good about it, so thank you.
You're very welcome. Now, I have a request, only because I remember when you first joined and you used to do this impression, and I used to love it, mate. So I haven't seen it for 7 years. And if I saw it when you did it on my birthday, I was drunk. So I don't remember it. So I've not actually seen it for 7 years. So if you don't mind, before I wrap this up, would you do me the courtesy?
Alrighty then. And you must be the Monopoly guy. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200.
Mate, sorry to put you on the spot, but absolutely top drawer. Jim Carrey / Ace Ventura. I always loved that impression, mate. You used to walk around the office. Remember, we had a big old plant as well, and you'd use the plant as like camouflage.
It was a fancy dress. It was like Christmas or Halloween or something. You had to come in fancy dress. So I came in as Ace Ventura, and I don't even know where I got the monkey from. I didn't have the monkey. I got I nicked the monkey from the office or from the pub the night before or something. It was like I basically nicked the monkey from somewhere and then had to build the costume around the monkey. And it just so happens that Jim Carrey is probably one of the world's treasures. So I've watched Ace Ventura a few times. Don't know if you
Mate, me too. He really is an absolute treasure. Thank you for doing that, Christian. You're a legend. Guys, that's it for this week's podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. Our first ever guest. If you want more guests on the show, hit the like and subscribe. That will tell me that you like this type of content, and I will go out there and do my best to produce more of it. Really great takeaways there from Christian. Make sure you listen and put into practice his advice. This is a guy that knows what he's doing, and I can say that because I've worked with him as well as known him in the industry for over 6-7 years now. So do what you got to do. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Christian, thank you, mate. We'll catch up again soon, no doubt.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, man. Love what you're doing here. It's cool.
Cheers, buddy. Take care.
Cheers, mate. Take it easy.